Hello and welcome to another D&D Stories. I am your host, TheWriter, and this is the show where we sit here and I regale you with all the interesting tales and remember when something cool happened playing tabletop games. D&D, harp, we've got it all. So, gosh, I thought today we'd go for another one-shot. I do have to apologize up front because this is probably the most immature game that I ever ran. Me and my friends were all like 15 at the time, and we're starting to get interested in girls. So this is the tale of the Scroll Mistress. Now, again, raging teenage hormones the whole time. I'm only going to make the one apology because if I apologize for every little thing, this story will be hours long, so if you get easily offended by perverted shit, then this is not the video for you. It is, again, just a one-shot, though, so you could skip this episode if you don't like talking about women or girls or girly parts, because this is... The entire point of this one-shot was just to talk about women, because that's the age and the maturity we were at the time, like around the age of 15, so... We have 4 adventurers, a cleric, a fighter, a rogue, and a ranger. And at the time, me and my friends were just learning D&D 3.5. Like, we knew maybe a third of the rules. We didn't know how to make character sheets properly. You know, we would, throw the D20, and if it was a high number, you succeed. You know, it was just barely like pseudo D&D while we were learning from the core books, the Player's Handbook, the DMG, and the Monster Manual. That was all we really had access to. We had the little, the starter box that had the Save the Baby Unicorn quest in it. We didn't have a lot of figs or a lot of maps or anything. We had an unrollable grid that had like markers, and you could wipe the marker off if you didn't leave it overnight and stuff like that. So this was like near the very beginning of my career as a DM playing D&D or any tabletop game at all. So bear with me for all the nonsense that's about to happen. Now, we join our heroes, which I'll only refer to by their classes because I don't remember their names, sorry. We join our heroes in the town of Spiky Gallows. Now that's a really horrible name for a town, because a gallows is where you go to get hanged. Hanged. Anyway, awful name for a town, which does not in fact have a gallows in it. So that was the same string of logic. It's like, we're going to Spiky Gallows, even though they don't actually kill people there. But our heroes arrive on the edge of town, and at this point they were basically just like the wandering, like, murder hobos. They would kill monsters and get loot so they could kill more monsters and get loot and stuff like that. It was like the bare bones of what D&D was supposed to be at the time, and the only thing that connected any of our adventures was the fact that we were using the same characters over and over. So it was kind of like an episodic anime for a while, where we were just... you killed this monster, so you get 300 XP and 17 gold pieces, and it would just, like, add up over time. And we would trade, like, who was behind the DM screen. Like, I had a ranger named Rock and Roll Tony, because I did, and a sorcerer named Yenot, Silver Streak of the East, and just... we barely knew what we were doing. It was like I would run a game and then I would trade out and play as Yenot while somebody else was running a game, and so on and so forth. So we would like rotate characters through like a guild. But we join our heroes in the town of Spiky Gallows, and I say, they go, "What kind of town is this?" And they go, "Is it a logging town or a farming town?" And I go, "Well, it's a cobblestone street town, so there's some development that's gone on here. There might be a quarry nearby. There's the occasional horse and cart that goes by, clippity-clopping along, and there are sidewalks and irrigation drains, so, people throwing out the chamber pots don't just throw shit into the streets. It's relatively well cared for." and you can see a woman, up on a ladder fixing a pub sign, and you can see, a gaggle of little girls running by chasing a painted ball, and you see this lady over here flower arranging, and I named like 8 or 9 things, and it was like, are there any dudes here? You're naming all women, man. And I go, nope. You look around, you look more closely, there are no men anywhere. Like, there's nobody thatching any roofs, there's nobody chopping any wood. Very much, because there are no men, and there are no boys either. Very strange. It's all women and girls, and they look at each other and they go, best town ever. Is this like the Isle of Lesbos, or maybe it's a culty town and they keep all their men underground and only use them for breeding purposes. Death by snoo, oh no. So They kind of like stick together with each other in case like an angry mob of women form up to capture them or something. But no, they get some weird looks, but nobody stops them as they come into town. And they go, this is kind of weird. And there's no gallows, you say. There's no gallows in Spiky Gallows. And they go, nope. And they go, yeah, that is really strange. Well, we are, weary from travel. I guess we should go ahead and find the tavern and rent out 4 rooms and all that stuff. And so they're more than happy to take these guys' money, just because, it's not a tourist trap town. It's like there's a quarry nearby, and it's like a local farming community. But all the houses are built close together for safety. So a bunch of different people's like properties meet here, and so they've got the blacksmith, they've got the quote unquote magic item shop, they've got the potion shop. This is basically the town that you can make with RPG Maker 2000. It's an absolutely stereotypical. The potion shop has a picture of a potion bottle over it, so you can tell it's a potion shop. The inn has the big INN sign over it that's not really called anything. It's just the inn and stuff like that. So I didn't even try to dabble at making a town. It's like you've got a dozen hot spots you can go to, and that's pretty much it. And they go, okay, well, we rent 4 rooms and we drop our stuff, like our tents and our bedrolls and things, so we're not carrying all that crap around with us. And they didn't have horses at the time either, so it's like, okay, so I guess we're going to have a look around. We are, strong and manly adventurers. Surely something is wrong if all the men from this village have gone missing. And they go, well, we are staying at the tavern. Why don't we ask the lady behind the counter? Maybe she knows something. And so it's like, well, why don't we just pick one of us so we don't all run up to the counter and start demanding to know things? They go, all right. So they send like the fighter over there. Ma'am, I can't help but notice your population is entirely female. What's up with that? And she goes, all the men and boys from our village have been going missing. And, now there are none left. And they go, really? And she goes, yes, look. And she gestures to, like, the help wanted, like, poster board area. And it's covered with missing posters. And, there's various rewards, like a silver candelabra, an ever-burning torch for the return of this guy, a stack of gold pieces if you can return this guy. My son is missing, I'll give you 3 cows if you find him and return him to me. These are a simple people. They don't have, like, a lot to give, but it's covered with missing, reward posters, and it's all different people of all different descriptions, all of them men and boys. So a lot of children missing, a lot of husbands missing, a lot of grandfathers missing. It seems to cross every age and creed as long as it's a dude. This person was taken. And we go, how do you know they're not, pardon us, how do you know they're not dead or that they've been eaten or torn up or whatever? And they go, well, my husband went missing in the dead of night. I finished having sex with him and I rolled over the next morning and he was gone. You could see the imprint of where his body was the night before, and that was it. He's like, I hate to be this guy, but how do you know he didn't just, like, leave town? and she reaches under the counter and she pulls a lockbox, and she opens it up, and inside is like the coin from like us getting rooms and stuff, and inside is a silver dagger. And she goes, "This is my husband's most prized possession, this silver dagger. If he was going to go someplace, he would have taken it with him." And we go, "Oh, okay." So they are not being like taken in a sweep of blood. They are being captured, and they're obviously not leaving. They're not planning to leave. They're just suddenly grabbed up. And if, whoever it was careful enough to not wake you, then they might be alive somewhere. It's an awful lot of people, half a village or half a town, just out from under everybody's noses. And they check a few more people, like, "Yeah, my little brother went missing during the festival, and then I never saw him again. My grandfather, was exhausted from cutting hay all day, and then he was gone the next morning." And they're just looking around like nobody has any inkling. There are no footprints. There's no blood. There's no evidence. Nobody took anything with them, so they either vanished into thin air or they went somewhere willingly but left all their stuff. It's a weird puzzle for them to try and figure out. And so they decide to split up and kind of like look for clues. Like, we're going to check down in the town well. We're going to look on the edge of town where the cobblestone ends so we can see tracks. And, I'm going to go to the magic item shop and ask around in case like somebody's been buying weird spell scrolls or anything. So we follow the cleric for a while, and he goes to the magic item shop, and he goes in, and the woman behind the counter is gorgeous, because of course she is. And I think the picture I gave them was like Esmeralda from Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame, just this gorgeous, like, doe-eyed woman with raven hair and tan skin and just curves for miles. And he goes, "I'm gonna seduce her." And I go, "What? You just walked in the door. She doesn't know you." And he goes, "Dude, there's no men in this town. Women have needs too." And I go, "Fine, roll it." So he's like, he goes up and he buys I think a light mace +1. It's a mace that has a +1 on it, but you can also use it like a torch. Like, if you speak the command word, you can hold it up and it gives off as much light as a torch does. And he's like, I'd like to purchase this. And she goes, "Oh, sure, of course, darling. This is, this amount of money." And he's like, "Would you help me polish my mace before I head out?" And just like, oh. And he rolls the diplomacy. Of course, it's a 1, so she takes his money and then smacks him upside his stupid-ass head. And he goes reeling and goes, "I'm not that kind of girl. You might go over to the tavern if you're just looking to chase skirts, ass." So he is, of course, rebuffed, and everybody who's around the table is laughing at him because he failed so spectacularly at trying to get some from a random stranger, but whatever. And he's like, "I'm going to go hide, like, in the aisles, and, can I find, like, a pebble or something?" He wants to get her back for like, smacking him. And he's like, "I throw the pebble when she's not looking." And he throws it, and I was like, I guess that's an improvised weapon, which you really wouldn't do, but again, we were just learning D&D at the time. I was like, I guess that's an improvised weapon. Roll your attack. He rolls a 20. Critical. Confirms the critical. Double damage. And I go, "Okay, roll your damage. I'll call it like a D3. He rolls 3. Double 3. 6. He basically popped out from one of her aisles and just like baseball threw this rock and beamed her in the back of the head when she wasn't looking. Ah! And she falls over behind the counter. He's like, "Oh shit, I killed her." And he runs over to the counter and like puts his hands on it. "Oh, are you okay? I'm so sorry." And he leans over the counter and she's like on the floor, like head down, ass up, and all of her skirts are splayed every which way. And he sees she's going commando, and he's like, does the carpet match the drapes? And I go, "Yes." That's the first thing you're going to ask. Fine. and she's like bent over nursing this massive bruise on the back of her head, and he's like, does the carpet match the drapes? So I was like, yeah, sure. She's got black pubic hair. Yes, she does. But you also notice, Cleric, she has a tail. And he goes, a tail? And I go, yes, it's a long, flesh-covered tail with a barb on the end. And he goes, oh. And he like leans back really quickly while she's getting up and like adjusting her skirts. And he's like, I'm sorry, here's enough for a health potion. And he runs out the door. Like she's probably gonna turn around and kick his ass, because she owns the magic item shop, and she could just grab a magic crossbow and shoot him in the face. So he throws down money for a potion of healing and books it out the door, because clearly there's more to this than meets the eye. And he runs out and he goes back to his friends, who are all at the tavern, because by then they've found there's no tracks, there's nothing down the well. And he goes, guys, the lady at the magic item shop has a tail. And they go, a tail? And he goes, yeah, I was buying this magic like +1 light mace. And he goes, and she was bent over for reasons, and she has a tail with like a barb on it. And he goes, were you giving her the +1 light mace? You roll that high in seduction? And he goes, yes, I was doing her doggy style, and I saw, she freaking has a tail, dude. I don't think she's human. And they go, are there any like races in this town besides humans? This was before tieflings and before dragonborn and before all this other crossbreed nonsense that came with like 4th and 5th edition. And I go, no, this town is entirely human. There's nobody else here that has a tail or elven ears or almond-shaped eyes or anything. This is a fairly middle-of-nowhere, just cobble-streeted town. It's all human. There's not even any dwarves or halflings around here. And they go, huh. I bet she might have something to do with this, because, when in doubt, check out what's different from all the rest. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things just doesn't belong. And they're like, huh. Did you learn anything? And they're talking to the cleric. Did you learn anything during the pillow talk? And they believe him when he said that he wandered in and just like did this woman in the middle of her shop. And I was like, he goes, no, I didn't learn anything, but clearly there's something unusual about her. We should check it out after hours. And they go, okay, well, we'll go up to our rooms for the night and wait for nightfall. And just like in the middle of the night, we're going to sneak out and head over to the magic item shop. And I go, you don't have to sneak out. You're staying in a hotel room, or you're staying at a tavern, an inn and tavern. You can leave whenever you want. The room is yours for a day. It's not weird for you to like go outside whenever you want. You're not like, it's not your mom's house. You don't have to explain yourself. And they're like, oh yeah. So they gear up a little. They buy a couple of potions. The cleric has his new +1 light mace, and he hides it away so that they can be doused in shadow. And they go outside and they see that not even the lamps are lit. It's like the nightly watch that goes around, the candlestick man, that would light the lamps on every street corner, must have been a man's job at the time, because they're all dark. So if there's not light coming from the nearby window, there's no light at all. So I guess the women of the village didn't think to start taking up the men's work, but whatever. And they wander down, and they're like, okay, there's the top hat with the wand over it with sparkles. That is the symbol of the magic item shop. And they peek through the windows, and they wander around the building a few times. And they see that she is not home. It doesn't look like it, at least. There's enough windows in each wall that they can kind of see into each room. but she's not there. At least it doesn't look like it. And there's, they can see into her bedroom, because in a medieval era you would probably live at your place of work. And they look over all the locks and all the everything. Is like, she's probably got magic locks if she's got a magic item shop. So how are we going to get in? And, the rogue's like, I've got your back. And they can go in through a side door because it's less likely to be magical, according to them. But the rogue kind of kneels down and does his thieves' tools so they can get inside. And they wander around. They start looking through her stuff. It's like, we could just rob the store and take everything. And you go, what all does this shop have? And I named down like 20 things as far as magic items go. And then I was like, she's also got spell components. She's got a whole bunch of scrolls up in all these like cubby holes, like it's a mail, like a P.O. box system where there's just all kinds of cubbies every which way. A bunch of them have scrolls sticking out. There's maps tacked to the wall. There's, a magic sword hanging above the hearth and stuff like that. It's a shop, and it's like, if you take everything, you're basically just being assholes, and you're going to break the game open, right? And they go, yeah, that's true. Dang it. It's like, we are a band of murder hobos, but if we rob this shop, it's not going to be good for us. When, like, paladins start boiling up out of the woodwork and, like, wanted posters for, X amount of tens of thousands of golds, start popping up. And it's like, I was sure they were going to take something, but they actually didn't. They're like, okay, we need to go, like, look through her stuff, not just, like, the shop. And so they root through her drawers. They throw, like, her panties out on the floor. They look under the mattress. They're checking her pillows and looking behind her mirror and her vanity and stuff. They look in her wardrobe. They like basically toss her place looking for anything weird, and they go, does she have like a basement or anything? And I go, yeah, there are stairs that lead from her bedroom down into like a cellar. And they go, okay, we got to check down there. And the cleric whips out his +1 light mace. And he's like, we go down into the darkness. And, of course, there's a few crates. There's, that's where the ice box is. That's where you would keep, like, your roots if you had a root cellar or like, strings of garlic and beans and things like that. It's where she keeps all her food, where it's dark and cool. And it looks like, there's, like, an unusual amount of food here for just one girl. Maybe she's got a husband or a trio of brothers or something, because there's way too much food here for her to eat it all before it goes bad. And they go, that's weird. And so they wander around, like maybe there'll be a secret passage in the cellar. They wander around for a while, and they find a trap door. And they go, guys, look at this. And they move the crates aside, they move the barrels. And they go, there's a trap door in the basement, so she has a sub-basement. And they undo the padlock, and they lift the trap door, and they go, wow, it just keeps going down, doesn't it? And so they're like, okay, I get on the ladder and I slide down, quick as you like. And they all go down, and they find themselves in like a small cave system. Like this has been hidden beneath the town. It probably connects to the well somewhere, because it goes on in all directions. And I go, but there is a light off to one side. And we go, and they go, okay, we'll head towards the light, but we'll be sneaky about it, because like if she's like a witch or something, we prefer to get the jump on her. It's like, so okay, you're wearing chainmail, some of you, so you've got like a -6 or whatever it is to move silently, but they do the best they can, and they send the rogue forward first, of course, because it's best for scouting. And he peers around and finds that there's this great room in the cave that's been like flattened and carved out to be like a big work area. And there's workbenches everywhere. And then on the far wall is a huge, huge series of cages containing people. And I go, the far wall has maybe 30 or 40 cages in there, just crammed with men and boys. And they go, we found them. We found all the people. And he rushes back to the group. Guys, this is where everybody is. Whoever, this woman is keeping all these people in cages down here. And they go, really? All of them? And he goes, yeah, I counted the cages. There's like 30, 40, 50 cages. They're all here. And I go, beneath this woman's house? How did she, I guess that explains why there's no tracks going out of town and why they didn't take any food and why, how did she get them down here? And they check around to see if the shopkeeper is there, and she's not. But they wander forward and they look at the workbenches, and it's all scroll work. It's ink and paper and nice parchments, vellum, colored inks, ink making stations, as far as like making green ink, red ink, purple ink. And there's candles for wax making, for seals, and there's this giant stack of finished scrolls. And they go, this is some kind of sweatshop. What is the deal here? And they the wizard like leans over, is like, detect magic, and every single scroll that's been finished and sealed is magical. And he picks one up. It's got like a picture of a snowflake on it. He goes, I bet this is like an ice spell. He picks up another one. It's got a lightning bolt on it. He picks up another one. It's got a picture of a flame on it. He picks up another one. It's got a heart on it. And he's like, they're magically delicious. And I was like, shut up. So they start grabbing scrolls by like the fistful. This was probably a mistake on my part, just leaving those out in the open. But they stuff like 50, 60, 70 magic scrolls of all different shapes and sizes and colors in there. They're going to open them later. And they look through like all the paperwork and the mathematics and the algebra that goes into making all these magic scrolls. Is like, don't you need to like use up money and experience points and all this stuff to make these scrolls? And they go, oh my god, that's what it's for. That is what all these people are for. They're first level peasants or second level town guards or whatever. She is using like their experience points, their life support or whatever you want to call that, to mass produce magic scrolls. Because when you're making magic items, you have to give like money, XP, spell components, depending on what you're making. She's using their life force to mass produce these things so she doesn't have to use her own. And they go, oh my god, what if you're already like a level 1 peasant, how do you use your own XP? And I go, it would be like using your life force. You would just die. And they go, oh my god, that's really dark. He's like, we got to go check on them. They run across the room once they see she's not there. They run across the room to like check the cages. And they go, are you guys okay? We're here to rescue you. He's like, oh, we're fine. They all look exhausted. They've got bags under their eyes and pale skin, and their hair is greasy. They barely look like they've been fed. Like, this is clearly like a short-term thing if all these guys got captured around the same time. And they only have so much life force to give, but they're like, oh, we're okay. Like, there's something wrong with them. Is it my turn to go back on the shift? And they go, no, you're done making scrolls for now, man. And they start like unlocking cages, but these guys like don't run out and back up the ladder to get back to their families. They're just like in a state to where they're just not moving. They're just sitting there leaning on the bars and doing stuff like that. Even the boys, the little children, they just look exhausted. They're all kept in one cage to one side because they're smaller than all the rest. Again, barely clothed, barely fed. They look, just pale-skinned and exhausted. And they go, what happened to all these people? How did they get to... There's like 70 of them. Surely they would make enough noise or cause enough rabble. It's one woman, as far as we know. How is she keeping you all here? And as they're trying to puzzle this out, it's like, clearly, like I said, this is a sweatshop. She's using them to make these scrolls and using their life force to make them magical. And they're already starting to suspect. You're like, I bet she's like a succubus or an incubus or something similar, because it just happens to be all men. And like the theming behind this one shot anyway. They guess pretty quickly she's a succubus. So she went across town whispering in men's ears and blowing enough dicks to get them to come to her house, and then probably didn't have to spend a lot of effort to get them down here and to get them under her spell, because like the demon boobies and the demon doggy style was enough to like enrapture them, to make them into like her thralls. And I bet they're, as far as they're concerned, they think they're doing this willingly. So it's like, we've got to get her. It's like, what if she gets you first? And they whip around, and there she is, of course. It's Esmeralda. Again, that was the picture I used. This dark, raven-haired woman standing there in like her shopkeeper's outfit. She goes, I was hoping I'd seen the last of you, your cleric and your friends. And she goes, but you've already discovered my operation down here. I'm afraid you can't be allowed to leave. And she pulls a scroll that's got like the lightning bolt symbol on it, and she pops the seal and she goes, lightning bolt! And she unfurls it, like holding it out like it's the tablet from God, and a lightning bolt blasts out of this scroll and knocks the cleric into the cages, and the scroll bursts into flames. And he takes a heavy chunk of damage and goes, you guys will pay for sticking your noses, and she's growing horns, sticking your noses where it doesn't belong. And she like rips off the dress to reveal like the dominatrix armor beneath, and she's got like the whip in one hand and the short sword in the other hand. They go, it's a freaking succubus, I knew it. And she goes, thralls, get them! And of course this mobilizes the 50, 60, 70 people and the children to like suddenly start grabbing them. And they go, oh god, it's a whole crowd, this was a bad idea. The cleric is immediately buried in people that are just like grabbing him up, and the ranger's like, I can't get a clear shot through the crowd, so the fighter has to like bull rush through all these innocent people to try and do battle with this succubus. And the rogue's like backflipping over tables trying not to get grabbed. We'll hold the crowd back, go get her. And he whips out his sword, and he's like, all right, I'm coming to get you. He's like, down, boy. Whoosh, and like whips his face with the whip. And he takes damage. He runs into melee range. He's like, don't think just because you're topless I'll go easy on you. Rah! And if you recall, succubuses aren't like especially powerful. I think in 3.5 they're like challenge rating a 3 or challenge rating a 4. They're meant to be like low-level demons that just use sex and seduction to gain power and kind of get their way. But, she's got 50, 60 grown men at her disposal, and she's probably sucked every one of their dicks or had her way with every single one of them to gain like their sexual energy. And she obviously probably didn't do that to the children, but they're still boys, so they've got like a power source. She could like kiss their foreheads and suck some of their energy out while they're working for her. Oh, she's a powerhouse. She just like basically backhands the fighter back into the tables. There's ink going everywhere, all different colors. The rogue like takes up his crossbow so he doesn't have to get close, trying to shoot her. It like bounces off one of her boobs and it jiggles because we're 15 and that's how mature we are. And they're like, okay, this was a bad idea. We've got to lure her out into the tunnels so we can just fight her that way. And her skin is turning red and like her armor's falling away because she's, she was in disguise, not so much anymore. So she's standing there buck naked, and her hair grows long and it whips around like tentacles, and they're like, oh god, this is getting worse and worse as time goes on. And the cleric fights his way through the crowd. He's like, +1 light mace, smite per day, boom. and does, the damage plus the 1, rolls the crit, gets the holy damage, and we stack it and we stack it and we stack it, and it doubles out the damage, and she, belts her across the face with this +1 holy mace. You're going to take my mace to the face, ha ha! And you're like, oh god, that's such a bad pun. And the cleric has to get into fight with this because it's a demon, or a devil or whatever it happens to be. But he runs in to do battle with her with holy damage. It's like, okay, send the fighter back into the crowd to hold them back. It's like, you basically just got to start punching dudes in the face because they're 0-level peasants. If you do more than a couple of damage, they'll just die. So he's like, I punch him in the face, and I knock him in the groin, and I, pick that guy up and throw him into the crowd, while the cleric is like doing battle with this naked demon woman. Until finally, he like cracks her upside the head, and she goes down. And, by then her wings are starting to emerge, so she, like, flies up into the air. You'll never get me up here, ha! I throw my mace! Punk! Ah! And she hits the ground and, like, busts another table. Like, they're breaking all the furniture, throwing each other into shit. She's whip-cracking anybody that gets close enough. She, pulls up the short sword to, like, cross swords with the cleric. And, the rogue actually got the backstab in at one point. She got thrown so far by just sheer holy damage that he actually got the backstab on her before the crowd swelled in around him again. And so they basically have to fight the crowd and her at the same time while all of her powers are rapidly emerging because transformation takes time, especially if it's from human form to like a demon form. So by the time she completely emerges into her regular form, they've knocked off like 90% of her HP, and she goes, down boy, and she blows a kiss at the cleric, and he like puts up his shield to like resist like the cartoon heart that's floating through the air, and is like, you'll not seduce any more men, you succubus witch, and he basically just keeps belting her over the head. Like she sold him a light mace +1, but he can put holy magic into it. So, and we realized where all the money was going because if you run an enchanting shop, you'd be really rich. But she kept this tiny little shack because she was feeding 70 people. And I'm like, okay. So finally, after a long time, a long struggle, they knock her ass out. And, the spell lifts, and everybody stops struggling and fighting with each other. Oh, why does my face hurt so much? And it's like, because I punched you like 6 times. I was like, guys, you're free. The exit's that way. Go, take the children. Go back to your wives and families. The ladder's right there. And, of course, everybody runs for it, and they're all too eager to get out of this hellish, like, sweatshop place. And, the half the furniture's broken, and all the ink is gone and everything like that. And they go, okay, well, the succubus is knocked out. We better go on and kill her because there's no way we can just let her go. If she did all this in a town like this, she can't be allowed to live. So it was actually really gruesome. They tied her up and made sure like her wings were pinned, and then used some more rope to throw a rope over like the rafters, and they hung her. I was like, Jesus Christ, guys, you could have made it quick. He's like, she's a demon. It's like, it's Spiky Gallows. And it's that's not even a joke. That's just really dark. So they hung this succubus in her own workshop. And they go, should we like collapse the place or anything like that? It's like, well, we could go around collecting all the parchment and the ink. It might be worth something. I was like, they don't even realize how dark this got, how quickly. But whatever, they managed to kill her and not kill any of the innocent people. That's what I was afraid they would do, that they would just like start swinging at dudes and see how many civilians would get killed during this. But they were actually very restrained. And after they were sure she was dead, they, just like a lot of other adventurers, when in doubt, kill it with fire. So they took the body outside and they took her to an open space, and they buried her in like firewood and kindling and burned the body to make sure she was dead. And I go, wow, she's past dead. She's gone by now. And of course, the streets are filled with people now because, all the husbands and grandfathers, there's the children are running back. Everybody's embracing and dancing in the streets. The men have come back. The men have come back. I was like, I wonder how many babies are going to get made tonight. How long have they been missing? And they go, gosh, we're heroes. And you go, well, the enchanting shop owner doesn't, there's nobody there now. It's like, surely they'll find another enchanting shop owner. Should we rob the entire store? And they go, well, why don't we just go pick our own reward out of, like, all of her stock? And I go, well, yeah, that's pretty fair, as far as, like, getting a reward for the adventure goes. You guys are already going to get, like, a stack of gold pieces and 3 cows and, like, all these little things that they were offering for the return of their men and boys, their family members. But as far as magic items go, yeah, just go into the magic shop. You can have one of whatever you want. And they're like, yeah, all right. And so they go to the magic item shop, and they start pilfering through things. Oh, here's a crossbow that turns all the bolts to frost. Here's a sword that makes vines spring up, and it grabs onto your wrist so you can't get disarmed. Here's a shield that doesn't bend from physical force. They find all these different things. Like, what are we going to pick? And the ranger, who is the only one who can, like, cast a lot of... the cleric, I guess it would have been. The cleric goes, I've still got this stack of, like, 70 scrolls. I'm going to see what some of these are. And what should have happened is they should have done, like, detect magic on each individual one, but instead, the cleric just started, like, he poured them all out on the floor, and he popped the seal on the first one. It's like, this is probably like a fireball spell, right? And he opens it up, and it's an exploding rune. And exploding runes, if you don't know, are marks that when you read them, or when you look at them too intently, they explode like landmines, which blew the cleric up straight away and then caught fire to all the rest of the scrolls, which began to blow up in a chain reaction, blowing the entire shop and everybody in it sky high, and everybody died. And I know that's not how spell scrolls work. I know that's not how exploding runes work. But again, 15 at the time, this was just the way we laid it down. Oh, they were mad. They were so mad. It was like, she was just making bombs. And it was like, no, they were spell scrolls, but you set them all off all at the same time. That was just me being a dick as a DM. But the enchanting shop blew sky high like Baba Yaga's house, taking off into the stratosphere. And there's just a big glassy crater there, like somebody had set off a fertilizer bomb. And, a quarter of the town catches fire. It's raining debris. Oh no, what has happened to our heroes? It's like, everybody run, get water out of the well, start throwing water on everything. And Spiky Gallows was on fire, and our heroes had died, and the Scroll Mistress was no more. It was kind of a mixed bag sort of ending, but I thought it was funny. That was just me being a dick as a DM, but that was the end of that adventure. I don't think we even counted those deaths as actually having happened because they didn't want to roll new characters, so that was like a non-canon episode of like our episodic campaign. But they got blown sky high because they set off like 70 exploding runes all at the same time. The lightning bolt or whatever the succubus used was one of her own. It came out of like one of her spell tubes. But the sweatshop guys, the things they were making, they were all like elementally themed exploding runes. Like she was probably going to blow the town up or something like that. Once she had like gathered all the power she could from the men and boys, she would have like mailed a scroll to everybody or set them up in some kind of weird chain reaction and just destroyed the town and moved on. But like after she had drained everybody dry. And her plan sort of worked. You know, it rained fire from the sky as all the debris from her shop went in all directions, and all the heroes got exploded. So, however you want to slice that, that was the tale of the Scroll Mistress. So again, this was a completely Clown Shoes game, a completely Clown Shoes group, and a completely like jokey campaign. But that was like just one episode out of this long string of just like bananas style D&D while we were still learning to actually play the game. So I hope you enjoyed that story. I know I did. And I guess I will see you guys on the next D&D stories. Keep gaming. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like button for me. If you want to keep up with channel updates, check me out on Facebook. And if you're feeling especially generous, be sure to visit my Patreon. Keep gaming!